Oral questions, the honourable member from Regina Capel.
After 9 years of brutal assaults on Canadian energy workers, the Prime Minister just delivered a knockout punch with a production cap on oil and gas development here, which his own department admits will kill jobs and drive investment south of the border. Canadian energy company Enbridge just announced a $700 million project in the U.S. The Prime Minister is creating powerful paychecks for American workers while Canadian workers can't afford their mortgages or food. It's completely baffling why he would kill jobs here just to see them created down south. Is he getting some kind of a commission from the U.S. energy lobby for all the business he's sending them?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite is saying is simply not true. It's a cap on pollution, Mr. Speaker. In fact, production is going to go up 16% by 2030, and companies in Alberta, in the oil sands sectors, are making billion-dollar investment to make sure that workers in Alberta have a future and the energy sector has a future, and we can fight climate change at the same time, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
It's a cap on production, and his own department says it will kill jobs. And let's listen to something else that their own officials are saying. The Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner has blasted the carbon tax as a failure. Here's some of his conclusions. Quote, the government has not made sufficient progress to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And quote, Canada remains the worst performer among all member countries of the G7. Every time the Prime Minister makes the carbon tax go up, Canada's climate performance goes down. Yet he keeps doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So why won't he call a carbon tax election so Conservatives can stop his insanity?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party of Canada is talking about climate change. We should note this somewhere in a book because it doesn't happen very often. If only they would talk about the fact that for 10 years they did nothing, which is why we had to pick up the slack from what they... When we came into power, emissions were going to overshoot 2030 by more than 30%, Mr. Speaker. Emissions are down by 8% because of our plan, the lowest emissions in 25 years, no thanks to the Conservative Party.
Encourage all members, please, to not take the floor unless they're recognized by the Speaker. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
Pick up the slack. Under their policies, Canada keeps falling on performance indexes. The only thing this carbon tax is doing is making Canadians poorer, and the results are devastating. A damning new report from the Salvation Army shows the human suffering this Prime Minister is inflicting on Canadians. Let's look at the report. First-time users of food banks shot up this year from 43% to 58%, and 1 in 4 parents are eating less so their children can eat. This is in Canada. How can he be so cold-hearted? Why won't he at least let Canadians decide in a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Economic Development in Quebec.
Monsieur le Président, savez-vous qui...
Mr. Speaker, do you know who has an inferiority complex in this place? It's the Conservative Party, because Canada has the lowest inflation. Interest rates are going down. Not only are we helping Canadians in need, we're building housing, we've got the family benefits, and the only ones in this place with an inferiority complex about Canada's economic resiliency is the Conservative Party. The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. The Prime Minister, supported by the Bloc, we learned today that our greenhouse gas emissions records are not reliable. And this Prime Minister contributed to doubling the price of food and rent, while at the same time not succeeding in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They have not met any of their targets. When will the Prime Minister call an election so that we can cut taxes? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, you're going to have to put this on your calendar. The Conservatives have raised the question of climate change. They did nothing. while they were in office. Nothing for energy efficiency, nothing for electrification of transit. The Conservatives did nothing. Their record was not good. Canada has had the best plan in recent years for reducing emissions, and it's certainly no thanks to the Conservative Party. They have no plan for the environment, no plan to protect Canadians, and no plan for national security. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. I think the minister should read the Commissioner of the Environment's report. It's clear. Reductions are not attributable to any steps taken by the government. The Liberal environment policy is not a policy. It's just a plan for the environment. It's just a plan to tax. The Liberals, Canada under the Liberals has the worst record for emissions reductions. When will the government stop punishing Canadians so that we can finally cut taxes after an election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. It's incredible what the Conservatives are willing to say. They've got their heads in the sand. Insurable costs for Canadians for the impact of climate change were $7 billion in June and August. It's unprecedented. And what would the Conservatives do? Just let the planet burn. They have no plan to fight climate change, no plan to create jobs in the 21st century economy, no plan to protect Canadians, their drinking water and their health. It's a true disgrace. Before I turn the floor over to the Honourable Member for La Prairie, I'd just like to remind members not to talk while the Speaker has the floor.